Hello, all you fellow art people. This is the last video in the Abstract Symbolic Self-Portrait project. Let me just remind you of some of the goals that we have for this project. We were inspired by artist Chuck Close and how Chuck Close used a grid drawing method or a grid painting method, and within each square of his grid, he kind of painted a little mini abstract painting. And all of those little squares come together to form the image of his portrait. So we're taking that idea and we're running with it. We're using abstract shapes and lines and textures and patterns, and we're seeing how we can use them for the purpose of shading and coloring and rendering the features of this portrait. So one of the goals of the project is just to simply see how many creative mark-making examples you can come up with to shade with. So how many different things can you use to do the shading? A second goal that's related to the first goal of coming up with different shading techniques is to incorporate different symbolism into the artwork as well. And when we incorporate this symbolism, we're choosing different images and designs that we can somehow insert into the picture. So I showed you how I can put like the American flag and I can form that into the shape of part of my mustache. On the upper part of the artwork, in my eyes, I use a moon for the shape of the iris. I have a paintbrush following the shape of my nose. So I'm incorporating those little pieces of symbolism and I'm using the existing shapes of the features of my face to put those pieces of symbolism in there. And then some symbolic images are simply put into a place in the artwork that I think it looks good. It's not actually fitting into one of the features of the face. It's just in there somewhere. A couple of places where I've done this are the smiley face teardrop, the robot shape that's on my cheek area, and up on my forehead, I've drawn a shattering light bulb. None of those symbolic images use the shapes of my facial features like the other symbolic images do. And then finally, the last goal is that we actually want it to still look like a face after we've added all these different crazy weird shading techniques and all of this symbolism. We still want it to look like a face. We want to see eyeballs, a mouth, a nose. We want all of that to be recognizable and detailed. So in order to achieve all of those goals, we really need to strike a creative balance between them. When we're being really creative with our shading techniques and being really creative with adding symbolism, we need to balance that with the other goal of that this needs to look like a face. So, how can I make sure that this still looks like a face? One thing that you can do is match the values that are in your photograph with the values that you're placing in your drawing. So making sure that the shadows are the same as they are in the photograph, making sure that the highlights in your drawing are the same as they are in the photograph, and comparing both the shadows and the highlights and how they contrast against each other, and making sure that matches in your drawing as well. Along with making sure that the values match between the photograph and the drawing, I also need to make sure that the shapes of the features match as well. So as long as the values match and the shapes match, then most likely it's still going to look like a face. What I'm doing now is I've zoomed out and I've put some kind of shading in every single square. Now I'm looking at the piece overall. I'm looking at the big picture of the piece. And I'm considering what finishing touches I need to add in order to finish this artwork. Specifically, what I'm looking at is trying to ask myself, what can I make darker? What shadows can I make stronger and deeper? And how can I increase the contrast to make the overall image really pop and have that 3D look? As with pretty much every artwork that I do, I could probably keep going on this for a long time. But I think I'm going to decide to stop here. I'm relatively happy with the overall artwork, and I'm happy with the individual details within the squares as well. I hope you found this video demonstration useful and that it will help you be more successful in your artwork. With that, I'm going to wish you good luck and have fun.